All right, welcome to another pedal demo. This time it's the Benson Preamp, and it's actually a pedal that I've used for many years now, and it was kind of like my tried and true first gain stage. I loved it. It was really well balanced. It gave me like a really tasteful grit, and I've recently moved on to it and also kind of come back to it for some heavier gain stuff because that's been pretty fun. But all that to say, though, we're going to take a look at this thing from top to bottom, check out what all the knobs do, and kind of maybe try out a couple of cool applications for it. So as far as what I'm using here that's notable, first thing on the pedalboard chain is the Pinstripe multi-buffer, and then second is a tone press compressor. After that, it's basically just kind of clean tone, and it's going to be the Benson Preamp. And my guitar that I'm using is a Veritas Portlander with Lindy Fralin Modern PAFs. And the amps that I'm using are a JMI on the left and a Fender Prosonic on the right. So clean tone basically sounds like this. And then this is the Benson Preamp. Cool, yeah, so at like first glance, or first listen, the thing that's really cool about it is it's more mid-range forward, and it has a really tasteful, kind of gritty quality on the top. That's what I connected to the most with it right out of the gate. It's also what's really cool. It's really hard to get a harsh top end out of it. Some might complain that maybe there's not enough top end on it, but to me, it's just cool because it's so balanced. You can push it really hard into an amp, and it basically feels like it never gets scratchy or pokey or harsh or anything like that. So that feels like a big highlight to me about the Benson Preamp. So cool. Let's kind of start diving into some knobs here. We'll leave the EQ where it's at the moment. And first things first, let's actually just kind of see what the drive sounds like if we lower the volume so it doesn't have a ton of amp influence and see what that sounds like. Cool, yeah, so that's about as gainy as the pedal itself gets. The volume is dropped, so that is very much mostly just pedal influence. I mean, if we're comparing actual like clean volume in comparison, here's clean. And then here's on. So in terms of volume, like we're not increasing a bunch. So what happens if the drive is up all the way and the volume's cranked? I mean, you can heavily lean into those amps and get, obviously kind of a fuzzy tone. It's like a finite relationship of absolute max out pedal and a ton of volume. Pretty sweet. Yeah, cool. Well, let's back off some of that drive and actually hear what the kind of peak of volume is like. So this would be like a max headroom scenario. Compared to clean. Sweet, yeah, very light there, so it can clean up a lot. I mean, it sounds like we still have a little more room if we wanted to make it actually quite literally preampy. So let's drop that drive to make it like unison with clean volume. It's about right there. Cool. I mean, it's giving you more of like a mid, high mid kind of push, which is nice. It's tasteful. It's kind of adding like a subtle, interesting grit. Very gentle. Sweet. Okay. So with that, let's back off a little volume, add a little more drive so it's a little fuller, and then just kind of listen to some of the EQ properties. Sweet, that feels pretty balanced. And let's listen to bass. Cool. Like, it gets pretty fluffy, whenever you max it out or even have it a bit higher. And the moment you start to pull it down, it really gives way to the rest of the tone to kind of cut and have its necessary forwardness, clarity, stuff like that. All right, let's see treble. Very vintagey warm. I mean, personally, I kind of like this particular Benson preamp with the treble maxed out. I say this particular because I had a different one at one point in time, and with the treble at about top right, like 2 o'clock, it gave me what felt like an appropriate amount of like high mid information. And then whenever I pushed it a lot more, it kind of got not unpleasant, but kind of like unnecessary top end I didn't need. Whereas with this one, when I max out treble, it feels like it's just opening more like kind of an airy sort of treble, which is very useful. It's very pleasant. But yeah, it's kind of surprising that I don't know if there's really any differences between them, but I experienced a difference, at least just in the EQ, as well as the drive. So the drive on the other one that I used, I had to have it a lot lower, and it was very, very sensitive if I lightly nudged the drive. It was about kind of where the drive is now, but it was more aggressive. So my assumption is maybe they kind of subtly change some pop values over time, but either way, the pedal still sounds generally the same, and it can accomplish a lot of the same general things. But either way, I like what this treble maxed out sounds like. Some might complain that maybe it's not enough, but at the same time, it keeps it really under control, and it still feels plenty like open. Well, sweet. Well, let's kind of add a little bit more gain and see kind of what some other cool sweet spots are for this. We'll leave the EQ there until we feel like we need to change it. Very explosive. I mean, obviously we're running it really hot, but it's cool. That's sounding pretty cool. It's got the proper amount of like oomph when you dig into something and kind of like chop to it, but it doesn't feel like it's compressing a ton. It's really like open and airy, so it's like you can kind of do rakes, you can kind of do big stabs. Sweet, that's a really big sounding tone, and weird knob positions, but I mean, it's whatever it takes to get some cool stuff. Sweet. So let's try two things. Let's actually back it off and get it to kind of more of a well-rounded setting as a sort of like first gain stage and throw like a boost after it, see how those kind of interact with each other. And then we'll throw some wet effects on that and hear these kind of two different ways it could be used that so far have been discovered. Yeah, so backing it off definitely warmed up the tone a bit. We're not hitting the amps as hard. Sweet, now let's hear that with the Benson Germanium boost, and it is after the drive. I really like that sort of punchy, sort of picky articulation it's got, but picky in a not like harsh way. It's like there's so much melodic forwardness, and it's not just like a wall of sound, and it's not scratchy or unpleasant. It's like I can hear the note, I can hear a lot of interesting texture and size. So all that to say, it works with boosts really well, and obviously different boosts can bring out different qualities, but that is bringing out some cool stuff. Let's hear that with some wet effects. I'm just going to use like a simple tape delay and cloud. Sweet, really like anthemic sounding. I love the amount of control it has, and it's so forward and clear and nice and pleasant. And I'm loving the amount of control the top end has. And let's try that again, but let's do that like really big, aggressive sounding setting. That's just the Benson Preamp. It's cool. Compared to the dialing it cleaner and then having a boost after, I felt like there was a little less kind of low end emphasis, and it was a little bit more forward. This felt like the low end was actually consuming it a little bit. Let's try maybe backing that off and doing that one more time. Yeah, that's sweet. It got it a little bit more out of the way in kind of a helpful way. And it still kind of has plenty of low-end information, even with it at 0. Compared to if we brought that up. Yeah, sweet. So let's hear that with maybe just like some swells. We'll leave it on this big aggressive setting and then just kind of see how it handles being given a lot of gain information for something like swells. Man, I was feeling it with that one. You hear that sort of like, as you really gently lean into that swell, you start to hear what the pedal is doing with its really interesting kind of like fluttery grit. And then it starts leaning more into the amps, and then you start getting even more. But man, what a cool pedal. That's the Benson Preamp, and it's still a staple for me. I have a hard time letting it go because it's so unique compared to other drives. And, you know, while some people might think that you can get so many of the same qualities if you just push it into the amp really hard, it's not necessarily true because so much of it is feel, so much of it is EQ. And at the end of the day, you know, the sort of grit and drive character that it is giving is causing it to, I mean, all those different things that we showcased, it's going to react and feel completely differently, even if 50% of it is amp gain. And the Benson Preamp is giving us something really, really interesting and inspiring. So love this pedal, and that's the Benson Preamp.